Aquarius, the devil asks you to name the bargain that keeps a pattern in place. Something may offer comfort, control, status, stimulation, or temporary relief while quietly charging more than you intend to pay. This week is not about shame. It is about seeing the contract clearly enough to decide whether you still consent to it. Your card for August 5th through August 11th is the Devil. The central message is that freedom begins when the hidden reward of the pattern is acknowledged as honestly as its cost. The shadow expression would be believing that intellectual understanding alone is the same as behavioral change. The wiser expression is identifying the trigger, reward, and price of an attachment, then building a replacement that meets the real need more consciously. This is not a prediction that one literal event must occur. It is a decision-making lens for recognizing the pattern when it appears. On August 6th, Venus enters Libra and moves through your ninth house of beliefs, study, travel, meaning, and the perspective guiding your future. Venus brings attention to attraction, values, harmony, and the quality of exchange. Through the lens of the Devil, this transit asks you to notice what becomes more appealing when you are acting from self-respect rather than habit. Let beauty and connection support the lesson of the card, but do not use harmony to avoid the truth the card is revealing. On August 9th, Mercury enters Leo and activates your seventh house of partnership, reciprocity, agreements, and one-to-one relationships. Mercury changes the way information moves, how decisions are framed, and what needs to be spoken or understood. For Aquarius, this can help translate the message of the Devil into language and practical choices. Use the transit to ask better questions, clarify assumptions, and give the central lesson of the reading a form you can act on. On August 11th, Mars enters Cancer and moves into your sixth house of work, routines, health, service, and the systems that shape your days. Mars brings drive, friction, courage, and the desire to act. Its energy can help you implement the lesson of the Devil, but it may also tempt you to rush before the emotional meaning is understood. Direct the energy toward one constructive action in this area rather than allowing irritation or urgency to choose for you. The deeper invitation of the Devil is not to perform the card's most familiar keyword. It is to notice the choice beneath it. For Aquarius, that choice may appear in the space between instinct and response. You may already understand this situation intellectually, but the week asks whether your behavior reflects that understanding. Watch for the moment when an old reflex offers immediate relief. That moment is not a failure, it is the doorway into a different decision. Also notice what you are tempted to make this card mean about your identity. The Devil describes an energy and a lesson, not a permanent definition of who you are. You can work with its message without turning it into a verdict. The most useful question is not, "Why am I like this?" It is, what response would make this pattern less powerful by the end of the week? In love, the Devil can expose attachment, jealousy, control, avoidance, or a bond sustained by intensity rather than mutual freedom. Mercury entering your seventh house supports direct conversation and clearer agreements. Ask what each person is choosing, not merely what each person fears losing. Chemistry is not consent to an unhealthy pattern. At work, Mars entering your sixth house can increase productivity and frustration. Be careful of using overwork as proof of importance or as an escape from a more personal question. The devil often hides inside routines that appear responsible but leave no room for choice. Change one system that depends on chronic urgency. Financially, inspect recurring charges, impulse patterns, debt, and purchases connected to identity or stress relief. Venus entering your ninth house may tempt you toward travel, education, or experiences that genuinely expand you. Expansion is valuable, but not when financed by denial. Choose the experience whose cost remains honest. For health and energy, focus on the loop rather than attacking yourself. What happens before the habit, what relief does it provide, and what follows afterward? Mars in your sixth house gives energy for change, but harshness can strengthen the cycle by increasing the need for relief. Replace, reduce friction, and track evidence. Wednesday is for naming the pattern without euphemism. Precision reduces shame because it turns a vague flaw into an observable loop. Thursday, Venus enters Libra and your ninth house. Choose expansion that broadens your life rather than helping you escape it. Friday asks you to identify the reward. A habit survives because it provides something. Understand that something before removing it. Saturday favors redesign. Make the healthier action easier and the automatic action slightly harder to reach. Sunday, Mercury enters Leo and your seventh house. Speak directly about an agreement, dependency, or dynamic that has remained implied. Monday is for evidence. Track one behavior honestly for a full day without trying to produce a perfect result. Tuesday, Mars enters Cancer and your sixth house. Use the increase in drive to change a routine, but avoid turning discipline into punishment. Here are your 3 journal prompts. Where is the lesson of the devil already visible in my life, even if I have not named it? What would change if I practiced this week's central truth, that freedom begins when the hidden reward of the pattern is acknowledged as honestly as its cost, in one concrete situation? Which response would allow me to respect both my feelings and my future? Your weekly guidance is this: make a trigger reward price map for one pattern. Write the trigger, the immediate reward, the delayed price, and the underlying need. Then design one replacement that meets at least part of the same need with a lower price. Practice it 3 times this week and record what actually happened, without moral judgment. Do not use the exercise to create another standard you can fail. Use it to collect evidence. The purpose is to make the message of the devil visible in behavior, because insight becomes trustworthy when it changes one real decision. Aquarius, this week does not require a dramatic reinvention. It asks for one honest correction repeated consistently. You may notice that the old pattern still speaks loudly, but volume is not authority. Let the card become a lens rather than a label. Let the astrology provide timing and context rather than certainty. Most of all, let your next action become proof that awareness is already changing the way you move. One more layer deserves attention. This card can become distorted when you try to solve its lesson through performance alone. A polished response may look convincing while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. This week, measure progress by what becomes simpler, more honest, and more sustainable after the decision. Notice whether your body relaxes when you tell the truth, whether your schedule becomes more coherent when you choose a priority, and whether your relationships become clearer when you stop managing every possible reaction. The card is not asking for perfection. It is asking for congruence between what you know, what you say, and what you repeatedly do. One more layer deserves attention. This card can become distorted when you try to solve its lesson through performance alone. A polished response may look convincing while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. This week, measure progress by what becomes simpler, more honest, and more sustainable after the decision. Notice whether your body relaxes when you tell the truth, whether your schedule becomes more coherent when you choose a priority, and whether your relationships become clearer when you stop managing every possible reaction. The card is not asking for perfection. It is asking for congruence between what you know, what you say, and what you repeatedly do. One more layer deserves attention. This card can become distorted when you try to solve its lesson through performance alone. A polished response may look convincing while leaving the deeper pattern untouched. This week, measure progress by what becomes simpler, more honest, and more sustainable after the decision. Notice whether your body relaxes when you tell the truth, whether your schedule becomes more coherent when you choose a priority, and whether your relationships become clearer when you stop managing every possible reaction. The card is not asking for perfection. It is asking for congruence between what you know, what you say, and what you repeatedly do. The Devil also challenges the idea that freedom is purely a matter of willpower. Environment, access, timing, fatigue, and social reinforcement all shape behavior. Use your intelligence to redesign the conditions around the pattern. Move the trigger, add a pause, ask for accountability, reduce secrecy, or make the alternative easier to choose. You do not prove freedom by standing beside temptation indefinitely. You practice freedom by creating structures that support the person you are becoming. A system that helps you choose well is not weakness, it is applied self-knowledge. Choose one environmental change and make it before motivation is required. Move the object, cancel the access, prepare the alternative, or tell the trusted person. Let the physical world support the decision your mind has already made. Freedom becomes more durable when it is built into the conditions around you. Your affirmation for this week is, I see the bargain clearly, reclaim my choice, and build freedom through honest action. Carry that with you through August 11th. Subscribe so your next weekly reading is waiting for you. Trust the timing. The stars have spoken.